Okay, Erev Tov, quick mitzvah Kav Daled. Mitzvah Kav Daled, the only mitzvah in Parashat Beshalach, Shelo Netze Beshabbat Chutz Latchum. Prohibition to go beyond the techum, the boundary on Shabbat. Vahi Beshalach yesh ba mitzvah lo ta'aseh achat. It has one lo ta'aseh. Vehi, and that is shenimnanu shelo lalechet beshabbat chutz ligvulim yedoim. We're restricted from walking beyond the defined boundaries on Shabbat. Shneimar, pasuk says, Al yetzeh ish mimekomo bayom hashve'i. Let no man leave his place on the seventh day. Now, what is the limit of this techum, of this boundary, both according to the Torah and according to the rabbis? Uba perush alav, the explanation, shemekomo nikra, that is considered to be within his place. Kol she'eno marchik yoter mishaos parsaot chutz la'ir. As long as he doesn't distance himself more than 3 parsaot beyond the limits of his city. So a 3 parsa is between 11 and a half and 14 kilometers. Okay? As long as you don't go past that point. The parsa arba milin, the measure of a parsa is 4 mil, ve'amil alpayim ama, and a mil is 2,000 amot. Umodedin misvat habayit hachitzon sheba'ir. Where do I measure these kilometers? From the outermost house in the city. Afilu hayta gedola keninveh. Even if that house is as large as the city of Ninveh, that's where I start measuring. Zeu ledin Torah. This is according to the Torah. El asher chachamim gadru gader. The rabbis erected a fence, a protective restriction. Ve'asru shelo lelech yoter me'alpayim ama chutz la'ir. And they prohibited a person from walking 2,000 amot beyond the limits of the city, which is approximately 1 kilometer. Okay, that is the outermost house. You only get really 1 kilometer. So according to Torah, you have up to 14 kilometers according to some opinions. Okay, and if you according to Rabbanan, it would be 1 or maybe just a little bit more than 1. Mishashem mitzvah zu. The purpose of this mitzvah, shenizkor v'neda sheha'olam mechudash velo kadmon, that we have to remember and be aware that the universe is a creation of God and not something that has always existed. Kemo shekatuv beferush b'mitzvat Shabbat. When it comes to the mitzvah of Shabbat, which we're going to see soon in the Aseret HaDibrot, which is mitzvah number 32, there the Torah says, Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz ve'et hayam ve'kol asher bam v'yanach v'yom hashve'i. So we see over here that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world in 6 days and He rested in 7. Al ken lizkor hadavar. To remember this matter that God created the world, ra'ui lanu shenanuach b'makom echad. Hashem says, it is better and appropriate for us to rest in one place, in one location. Kilomar shelo nelech bederech rachok. We're not to walk a great distance outside the city. Rak derech tiyul ve'oneg. But you can only walk in a leisurely, pleasurable manner. Ubalichat shnei masar milin en bo torach rab. And walking 1 kilometer out of the city isn't so much considered a exertion, and therefore it is fine. Now, you can walk more than 1 kilometer inside the city. No one's preventing you from doing more than that. That is fine, because it's considered leisure. But outside the city, we give you a limit of 1 kilometer.
What if you live on the edge of the city? Like Thornhill?
Yeah.
So you can't walk 1 kilometer north of Thornhill?
No.
Makes no sense.
You're outside the tchum.
It goes against the common sense.
It goes out tchum. Yeah. Your place. You have to be in your place. Now you're not. You go outside 1 kilometer. You're no longer in your place.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Now again, according to Torah, it's much more than that, but the rabbis made a limit. Yeah. No. Outside the city.
So I live inside the city.
No, we're not talking about. This. Okay, so just because Steeles separates Toronto and Thornhill, that's not what we're referring to here. We're referring to the outermost home of the whole city. After that is field, is rough terrain. That's what we're referring to. We're not referring to, this is, yes, officially, municipally it's 2 separate cities, but really it's one large GTA. Dinei mitzvah, the laws of this mitzvah are very numerous. Kegon, sovet, bamidbar, o bim'ara, madino. For example, what happens if someone begins Shabbat in a desert or in a cave? V'chen, mi sheyatza chutz litchum dirtzono leonsor b'rishut beit din. Someone who exited the boundary willingly or unwillingly with permission of the chachamim. Okay? So does he get a new tchum, a new 2,000 amot? What happens if the one who exited the tchum, all of a sudden he realizes he becomes enclosed during the Shabbat? We also have in these laws a house that juts out beyond the other houses of the city by 70 amot in a fraction. All these cases are brought down in the Mishnah Masechet Shabbat. Ubeta Knesset shesh bo dira lechazanim. Maybe there's a synagogue that has a residence for the chazanim here, not the chazanim, the singers, but rather the people that took care of the Bet Knesset. Ubeta avodah zarah shesh ba dira lekemarim. Or what happens if you have a temple for idolatry that contains residences for the priest? Do I consider that a residence? Ve'otzarot shesh ba'en dira, or warehouses that might have a residence in their warehouse. Or what happens if you have ruins that have 3 walls standing, but they don't have a roof and a ceiling? Madinan, ima'ir. What, in all these cases, what is their law? Are they included in the city or are they not included in the city? Also, you have Aruka, a city that is very long and narrow, like a rectangular shape. Merubat, or a square. Agula, or a circle. Asuya kemin gam o kekeshet. Or it's like the letter gamma in Greek, which is like an L, or like a bow. Where do I measure the 1,000 amot? Do I from the edge of the bow? Do I from the top of the bow? All these things. What type of rope do I use? Am I allowed to use an elastic that stretches? Do I have to use something that doesn't have a little pull, no pull? How long does the rope is allowed to be? Because if it's too long, then the rope droops. Then you're not really getting the real measurement. And if you get to a valley, or lehar, or a mountain, or lekotel, or a wall, ketzad moded, what do I do? How do I measure through a mountain? How do I measure through a valley? Who to rely upon measuring this tchum? Who is believed regarding the tchum? And all these details, you can find it in the Masechet, which is Masechet Eruvin. This mitzvah applies in all locations and all times. To men and women. And someone who transgresses this mitzvah, and walks 1 amma more than the 3 parsaot that the Torah allows him, he receives the penalty of lashes. And if he walks 1 amma beyond the rabbinic techum, which we said is 2,000 amot, loke makat mardut rabanan, he incurs makat mardut, which is a lashes of discipline by rabbinic law. Now, he does end off like this. Ve'aramban, the Nachmanides Zal katav, kimat shamar harambam besefer hamitzvot, regarding what the Rambam said in his book of mitzvot, the isur techumin deoraita hu bioter alpayim amma, that the biblical prohibition of going beyond the tchum applies to going more than 2,000 amot from the city. And what he said in his compilation, he retracted and wrote that it's really 3 persaot, much more than 2,000 amot. The Ramban says, everything that the Rambam wrote, Maimonides, is mistake. It's erroneous. The Ramban says, there is no such thing as a prohibition of boundary according to the Torah. Doesn't exist. Rather, everything is rabbinic in nature. The whole idea of techum is rabbinic in nature. The Ramban says we see from many places in the Talmud, namely the Babylonian Talmud, which we rely on all our halachic matters. And the Ramban cites many proofs to it in his book. So now, what do you do with that pasuk? That pasuk that we started. That person cannot leave his place on Saturday. So that's a pasuk from the Torah. So Ramban says, Kemo al yotzi. He explains that pasuk to mean, let no man take out of his place on the 7th day, which means carrying something out of his domain to public domain. Okay? And that is definitely a biblical prohibition of carrying when a place where there is no eruv. There's a chacham in Masechet Eruvin who understands the pasuk that way. And there's a big difference between the Rambam and the Ramban with regards to this mitzvah. Again, Maimonides, who the Sefer HaChinuch usually follows, says that techumim is a biblical mitzvah. You're not allowed to walk more than 3 parsaot according to the Torah. 2,000 amot from the Rabbanan, and the Ramban says no, all of it is rabbinic. There is no biblical isur. What the Torah means is carrying something from a private domain to a public domain. We'll stop here.